What's up, movie lovers? I'm Mike, and this is Gotta Love Them Movies. You guys, welcome back to Gotta Love Them Movies, your daily dose of movie news. I'm your host, Mr. Mike Brown. I'm here all the time. And you guys, today is a beautiful day in New York City. It is a balmy 45 degrees Fahrenheit. And where our guest today in England resides, I'm guessing that is close to like 5 degrees Celsius? Something like that. Somewhere in that ballpark, maybe 10 degrees Celsius. I don't know how the metric system works. Anyway, guys, yesterday, this is not movie news, but I need to tell you how excited I was to be sitting in my Christmassy apartment, not listening to Christmas music because that would have been distracting me. I was editing yesterday's show, and I was tagging it, I was uploading it, and my girlfriend Kim runs out of the office and she goes, "Mike!" And I'm like, What happened? Is everything okay?" And she goes, "Look outside." And I'm like, "Oh no, is the city on fire? 2020 is such a garbage year. What is happening?" And I said, What's wrong? What's happening?" And she goes, "It's snowing." And I threw open the window shade. I guess it's the curtains. I threw open the window shade, looked outside, and it was a full-on snow flurry. I was so excited. You guys, New York City's first snowfall of 2020. Happiness has arrived, at least in my heart anyway. And I really hope that happiness has arrived in the heart of today's guest. He's a very good friend of mine. I've known him for quite a long time. We've improvised on stage together, both in the United States and in England. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for one of the most talented and influential people I know, Mr. Lloydie, James Lloyd. Woo, 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 woo.
Oh, thank you so much, Mike. That was more introduction than I fully deserve. And just in temperature news, because I know this is important to you, it is indeed 45 degrees in New York. That is 7 Celsius. It is 43 degrees in Nottingham, UK, which is 6 Celsius.
So I wasn't that far off the mark when I was saying like 5 Celsius, 10 Celsius, somewhere through there. I literally, you split the difference.
Oh, absolutely. We're temperature buddies. I mean, that's what we are. Yeah.
I love it. I love your jumper, as you would say. Beautiful.
Yes, sweater, as you would say. Shall we do translations throughout this? Because that would be so fun.
I'm sorry. What is a lift again?
The elevator. Yeah, that's right. And what is aluminum?
You mean aluminium?
That's the fella, yeah.
Lloydie, like I've just given you a brief introduction. Like, we've known each other for quite a while. Can you tell our viewers what it is, just a little bit about what you do, and some interesting things on the horizon, sir?
Sure. Well, my name's Lloydie. I do improvised comedy, amongst other things, with a group called the Maydays, and we kind of tour the world when there isn't a pandemic, and also with a group called Rhymes Against Humanity, and we make up musicals. I host a podcast called the Improv Chronicle podcast. Improv, there's a 20-minute documentary every 2 weeks. What else do I do? I've worked in broadcasting for a couple of decades. I have worked for a member of the European Parliament. I was once taught how to drink vodka by the Under Secretary General of the United Nations. And next year, I want to do more sleeping.
Hang on a second. 2 things. One thing you left out entirely, which was Star Wars, but also B, you learned how to drink vodka from a member of Parliament?
No, it was the Under Secretary General of the United Nations, so the Secretary General's deputy. Okay. It was a very long time ago, and I was at a conference, and I was at the same table as him.
How does one drink vodka correctly and incorrectly?
Well, it was because we were in Russia at the time, and he was a Russian. He was like, "This is how we drink it," and I didn't drink it properly because it involved consuming more than I was comfortable with consuming in one split second. So I think I may have offended him.
Well, I can guarantee that you will not be offending us. You will not be offending our audience, as long as we keep everything on topic. And ladies and gentlemen, before we can get to those topics, first, I have to tell you to go over to youtube.com, type in Gotta Love Them Movies. In the top right-hand corner of the screen, you're going to see a little red square that says subscribe. Go ahead and click that button. What clicking that button does is it helps us to widen our subscriber base. And yes, I understand many of you may be watching this on Facebook Live right now, but here's the thing. By going to YouTube and subscribing to the channel, you will be adding yourself to the pantheon of supporters of the channel. And with the more people that subscribe, the more watched content the channel gets. The more watched content the channel gets, the more I get to qualify for ad revenue, making the show my full-time job. So I very much appreciate that. Of course, as soon as we hit 1,000 subscribers, this show will be moving from Facebook to YouTube. So just something to be aware of on the horizon. All right, guys, with all that done and out of the way, now it's time to go and take a little bit of movie news.
What?
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 All right, you guys, we have got, I think I've got a few interesting topics lined up today. Some of the stuff is, I don't want to call it old news, but we need to rehash something. We need to go back and take a look at some of these situations with a fresh pair of eyes, or rather with a second look. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is not a second look thing. This is actually something that we've known has been on the horizon for a little while, and that is the Disney investors meeting is happening today. The Disney's investor meeting is happening today. And you may be asking yourself, so what? Who cares? Disney investor meeting, big deal. Well, here's the thing. Here's why we're talking about this today. The last time, because the Disney investors hold a meeting 4 times a year, like once every quarter, right? And out of these meetings come really big decisions. The last huge decision to come out of a Disney investors meeting was Mulan. We all know that situation with Mulan. They decided to put Mulan out onto Disney Plus with a premium $30 price tag. If you want to watch Mulan, you pay, yes, you have to be a Disney Plus subscriber, but you also have to pay a $30 price tag, or I guess $29.99, whatever. It doesn't matter, right? So why are we talking about this today? Well, as you may have noticed, there is a massive global worldwide pandemic going on right now. The world has shifted slightly. We don't do business the same way that we always used to. So with Disney trying to figure out the future of what their company is, of what they're going to be, of how they're going to stay in business, of how they're going to make money, of how they can be the most effective and efficiently running system, business that they can be, they need to make some very interesting and creative decisions. And today is the day that they're all meeting, they're all coming together to let each other know what these decisions are, and to make further decisions, finalize things. So later today, probably tomorrow, big news, big announcements are going to be dropping from Disney. So what are some of the things that we can expect to hear from Disney? This particular article in Variety breaks it down into 4 different quadrants. The first quadrant is film. Variety is talking about, will Disney pull a Warner Brothers and smash theatrical windows? The next part of what they're talking about is streaming, television streaming, specifically their focus on Disney Plus. I almost said HBO Max. Next is their theme parks. What can they do to improve their theme parks? And lastly, Disney stock. What can we expect to see from Disney stock? So let me just address the last part first. Disney stock, as I reset the page. So the Disney stock is expected to maybe not soar, but they're expected to do very well, right? Disney has positioned themselves very well financially, maybe not necessarily to prepare for a pandemic or to prepare for this kind of at-home situation that we all find ourselves in right now, But out of sheer coincidence and out of sheer preparation, maybe not sheer preparation, but out of preparation, they have positioned themselves extremely well for good success in the future, right? Or rather, in our current situation. So there's that. The Disney parks, let's address that really quick. There's not a lot that they can do. It's the situation is a little bit out of their hands. Their park in Florida, Walt Disney World in Florida, has been open since, I think it was June or July. I want to say it was July is when they finally opened. I think Disney parks historically have only ever been closed 4 times in history. I think one was out of reverence for the assassination of JFK. One was out of reverence for 9/11. And now the pandemic. There was another one. I can't quite remember the other one. But now out of the pandemic. So it's a historical moment to say that Disney parks are closed, and for the first time ever, closed more than one day consecutively. More than one day consecutively. That's never happened in history before. California is still closed. The Disneyland has been shut down since the beginning of the pandemic. That is yet to reopen. And their park in Hong Kong has opened and then closed, and then opened and then closed, and then opened and then closed. So they're currently closed in Hong Kong, and it's just a back and forth situation. So the park situation is kind of out of their hands. There's not a lot that they can do to try and salvage money with the parks. They're already operating at a $9 billion deficit just from the parks. Just from the parks. That's crazy. That's crazy to think that just on the parks alone, the Walt Disney Company has lost $9 billion just from the closure of the parks. And some of them are kind of open. So let's talk about streaming and let's talk about movies, because I feel like those two things are hand in hand at this point. What are some things that we can expect to hear come out of this Disney investors meeting either later today or tomorrow? I mean, you guys, the writing's on the wall. You know, a few months ago, Disney makes an announcement that they're going to focus on streaming. Warner Media counters that by saying they're going to make an announcement by focusing all of their time and attention on HBO Max. Disney says that they're going to move their movie, Mulan. They're going to put Mulan on Disney Plus with a streaming premium. That did not work out so well for Disney, by the way. That did not work out so well for Disney. But it was a big announcement. It was kind of a risk. It was something that they wanted to experiment with and try and see how well it worked. Well, then Warner Brothers countered and said, "Oh, well, we're gonna put Wonder Woman on both HBO Max and in theaters on the same day, on Christmas Day." And then Disney countered and said, "Okay, we're just gonna put Soul out on Disney Plus on Christmas Day. So how do you like that, Warner Brothers?" And then Warner Brothers was like, "All right, it's time for the big guns." They've announced that they're gonna drop 17 movies. Their entire 2021 movie slate on HBO Max the same day that they're coming out in theaters. Unprecedented. That's never happened before. You guys, it's a pretty good chance that Disney is going to counter HBO Max's announcement with another massive announcement that they're going to drop their entire 2021 slate on Disney Plus. It may happen, it may not, but I think if it does, we should not be completely taken off guard here. This is such a huge opportunity for Disney. And yes, it's also a huge opportunity for consumers, but there are certain impacts and domino effects within the industry that it will have. And you know, we'll talk about that later in the next segment coming up. But Lloydie, let me kick this to you for a second. Disney has some big decisions to make in the next 24 hours or less, because their investors meeting is happening today. You're not an insider per se, but you've worked in entertainment industries for, like you said, for better part of 2 decades. You understand trends. You see the industry for what it is. You've been around the block a few times. You know what's going on. What do you think we can expect to hear from Disney in terms of like big news announcements? Because we already know that they're taking a huge shift towards Disney Plus moving forward, and that COVID has accelerated those plans. So what do you think that we're going to see from Disney? And I don't know. Do you think we're going to see Black Widow on a premium streaming service in the next year?
I'm going to be really interested to see what their medium term is versus their long term, like where the long term strategy is. Because, yes, I think the pandemic is going to have changed things. When we come out the other side sooner rather than later, please, I think things are going to be different. However, there is a difference between chasing where the money is in the short term to where the money is in the long term. Right now, of course, there is so much more money in streaming. That is obvious because, you know, most movie theaters are closed. Either that or people don't really want to go there for fear of catching the COVID disease. However, movie theaters are going to reopen. And do you think after being cooped up in their homes for the best part of a year that people are going to want to stay in their homes for longer periods still? So you've got to compete for people's attention where they are. And I think people are going to be coming out of their homes and wanting to spend a lot of time socializing, reconnecting with the world outside and in other environments. Now, there is a really good podcast called Decoder. And on that, they talk about trends. And at the beginning of this month, they had Shelley Taylor, who is the CEO of Alamo Drafthouse, who like are one of the main picture houses in the US, I believe. We don't have them here. We have gentlemen and ladies picture houses over here in the
Lloydie, that
the
means
UK.
something very different here.
I'm
A
sorry.
gentleman's picture house? Oh, yeah. Very different.
Okay. Oh, no, I see where that could potentially lead. Apologies. I was just trying to make it sound more British and have succeeded in making it sound something else. But Shelley Taylor from Alamo Drafthouse was talking about what they're doing as movie theaters, as cinemas, to get ready for when people are ready to come back to the cinema. And when people are ready to go and see a movie with other people and enjoy the collective experience, they are trying to make it the best possible experience, whether it be the seats or whether it be getting in locally brewed craft beers that people can have. So they're really investing in that. And I think Disney, if they're going to be smart, short term, yeah, absolutely. You know, you put your stuff in streaming. But more long term, one of the reasons why Disney is in better shape than a lot of companies is they've been a mix between things like physical properties that they have, like the theme parks, and stuff that you can just consume online and stuff that is rights based and digitally based. And I think the companies that will do the best, whether they be movies or not, are going to be the ones that have a bit of both, because the online element, some of that is going to stick. And people have bought their subscriptions, so of course they're going to want their money's worth. But humans crave experiences, and when we can get out of our homes and have physical experiences again, if I know humans like I do, then they're going to want them. So there is a difference between chasing the money and chasing your people, and I think that hopefully Disney will have a differential between their medium-term strategy and their long-term strategy that comes out of this meeting.
Okay, so you talk about medium-term strategy and long-term strategy. What does that look like? Like if they have a long-term strategy, obviously their long-term strategy and their medium-term strategy is to make money, as well as the short-term strategy. They want to make money. They want to stay in business. It's, you know, it's often been cliched. It's called it's called the movie business, not movie friends. What am I trying to say? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So they're here to make money. They're here to stay in business and to provide more content. What is the real world practical application of that? Like, what does that look like? Does that mean that you think that they're going to put maybe less content out now so that we have more content later? Or do you think they're going to put more content out now and have maybe have less content later, or B, ramp up production in a COVID world so that we have more content now and more content later?
Hopefully it's the last one, because we all want content. I know I do. I constantly want something new to watch. Like waiting a week for the next Mandalorian episode is, it feels like an eternity. And how about that most recent one? That was so good. Anyway, I think Disney, what they need is to keep that current subscriber base happy and engaging with that platform as often as they can. Because the more that is habit while people are in their homes, then when people go out and about again, but then come back to their laptop, their Apple TV, whatever they're watching things on, then it will still be habit when they come back home. And they can expect a reduction in the amount of hours that they get of people watching stuff on their platform, I think, when things open up. But hopefully they have engaged with the Disney brand enough, and hopefully with some of their franchises, that when they go back to the movies, there is going to be something there that they want. I mean, if they've been really strategic, and I think it's hard to do during this pandemic because it's been so unpredictable, but you think of the franchises that Disney have got, what can they have in production now that you've already got like episodes of or teasers for on Disney Plus? Can they make something that when we are going back to movie theaters, that is, that Disney Plus provides the stepping stones for, so that when people go back to movie theaters, and now I need to go back to a movie theater and watch this.
Well, I think that's a really clever thing of what they're doing with their Marvel television shows right now, right? So we have WandaVision coming out. We have Falcon and Winter Soldier coming out shortly thereafter. Who knows what's going to happen with Black Widow? I mean, chances are very do you remember that maybe it was like a week ago or a week and a half ago, there was a leaked footage of like a new Disney Plus promo to say like, hey, look, all these different shows are coming out on Disney Plus. And one of them featured was Black Widow. And in the bottom tiny right-hand corner of the screen, there was a little tag that says Black Widow coming April 2021 for a premium subscription. It was a leaked video. Nobody knew the source. It very well could have been the most perfectly produced fan-made leak in history. It could have been, because it looked perfect, but there was no source tracing. Nobody knew where it came from. So there was that. But Marvel has been, Marvel. They have been putting out these television shows. Hawkeye just went into production. They've announced casting for She-Hulk and Moon Knight. Moon Knight is shaping up to look pretty cool. And Ms. Marvel. So like they have these, as you call them, stepping stone projects that lead into the bigger picture. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man 3, which we're going to talk about a little more about later. These are huge, massive projects that it's possible that, Disney is just going to announce, hey, all these shows are coming out. Here's your stepping stone shows. And let's get you amped up and excited and ready for a big theatrical movie. I mean, that could happen too.
I reckon so. I think that would be a really smart strategy. And like 10, 20 years ago, we would never have been saying this, because the rule always was that, if you were on TV, and you were known as a television star, you were much less likely to get movie deals, because why would people pay to see you when they can see you for free? Yeah. Now, because you've got subscription services like Disney Plus, like Netflix, like Hulu and Amazon Prime, now that is no longer the case, because you are already paying and you are literally invested in these shows and in these characters. Yeah. So by putting on a movie and by using these different TV shows, the Marvel ones in particular, which have such a following, and using those towards movie eventually, a big blockbuster is, I think, a strategy that they could leverage an awful lot. And there are very few people other than Disney who can really do that right now.
I don't want to keep belaboring this point, because I feel like we've kind of talked it to death right now. But Earlier, you had mentioned the amount of subscriptions that Disney Plus has. They have 74 million subscribers, maybe a little bit more by now, but it's right around 74 million subscribers. That's huge. That's more than analysts even projected, and that's based off of one television show, The Mandalorian. That's based off of one early film release, I guess, with Hamilton. And that's based off of their catalog. That's it. They have a massive catalog that they don't have to license. So there's $0 in licensing fees because they own all their content. You have your operational costs and blah, 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 whatever. But we have 1.5 seasons of Mandalorian out right now. 1.5 seasons. Second half yet to come. We have Hamilton. That got a lot of subscribers. And all the library content. 74 million subscribers. HBO Max has around 40 million subscribers right now. A little bit more, around 40 million subscribers. With HBO Max dropping all of their content with Warner Media dropping all of their content onto HBO Max, subscriptions are going to go up, right? And I think it's really interesting to talk about these Marvel shows, because once Disney really starts getting into the rhythm of, hey, we've got this show, and then we've got this show, and then we've got this show. Oh, you know that other show? Yeah, we've got more of that as well. We're getting an Obi-Wan Kenobi standalone show. We have other Star Wars shows coming, not connected to any character that you currently are familiar with. So there's a lot more television style content coming out on Disney Plus that is just going to aid in this ramping up of subscriptions.
It is one of the smartest things I think that they have done as a company in a long time. And some of it has been deliberate, has been calculated, but to coincide your launch of such an important product with a pandemic that's going to keep people at home craving content is, a bit of luck as well. And these things always are. They're a bit of luck and they're a bit of judgment. Equally, people took similar gambles in other directions. And, poor old Richard Branson there. Don't feel that sorry for him, but, trying to launch a cruise line business just as a pandemic. That is, the equation in entirely reverse. So I think it's it's a really interesting time to be watching Disney, because you're right, their overheads are so low compared with everybody else who's having to pay for back catalog. I half got Disney Plus for The Mandalorian, but 50% of me got it for all of that back catalog of DuckTales. Yeah. And I can tell you, I have watched so many of those episodes and I'm loving it. So
worth
Scrooge
the
McDuck.
money. Worth the money. Yeah. Anyway, guys, question for you is, what do you think the big announcements coming out from Disney will be later today? Do you think that Black Widow is actually going to come out on streaming on Disney Plus for a premium? Do you think that was a stunt? Do you where do you sit with all this? What kinds of announcements do you think Disney is going to make? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, our next bit of movie news today comes to us from Variety, and I apologize because the page is trying to reload right now. It's having a tough time. I've got like 12 windows open on my computer, so there we go. All right, so kind of piggybacking off of what we have kind of already been talking about, and we've been talking about this ad nauseum for quite a while now. The question has been circulating over and over and over and over again. And that question is, oh man, why do things just never work the way you want them to? All right, there we go. What do we think the future of movie going is going to look like? So with HBO Max dropping this huge, massive announcement last week, 17 films coming out, like they're in, all of Warner Brothers 2021 slate dropping on HBO Max the same day that it's also being released in theaters. One movie every 3 weeks. Think about that. One movie every 3 weeks coming out in theaters and on HBO Max the same day. Crazy, unprecedented. The question now becomes, is this the final nail in the coffin for movie theaters? A lot of people have said, even I, myself, on this show, I have talked about how this is the death of movie theaters. Not that movie theaters will ever completely go away. I think I've been pretty vocal and clear on this point. But the landscape moving forward will not look the same as it does. Well, I mean, as it did in 2019. As it does today, everything's crazy and up in the air right now. But things moving forward will probably not look the same as they did a year ago or 2 years ago, or how we've known them to be, right? There's a lot of opinion articles out there. There's a lot of people, posting this fact and that fact and whatever. And I would kind of like to address a lot of this stuff for a moment, because even I like to jump the gun a little bit, and you hear a headline and, oh, this is the death of movie theaters, and I get it. I'm guilty of it. We jump on these massive headlines and we say, oh, this is the death of movie theaters, and oh, nothing's going to look the same. I read an opinion piece in the New York Times. Here, let me pull it up real quick. So there was an opinion piece in the New York Times where they kind of go through and interview a bunch of people, and like Ava DuVernay, J.J. Abrams, and they even referenced David O. Selznick. David O. Selznick, if you're not familiar, he was the one who directed. I think he helped to adapt the screenplay, but he directed Gone with the Wind, amongst many other movies. So the article starts off from the New York Times, from David O. Selznick, with a quote of when television was first introduced into people's homes, when it really started becoming a thing. David O. Selznick said, "This is the death of cinema. Our industry has only been around for about 50 years, a little bit more than 50 years, barely. And television was the death of cinema." Then it goes into the comparisons of, the pandemic from that ended in 1918, about 100 years ago, the Spanish flu, and I think it was J.J. Abrams who brought this to everyone's attention in this particular article, which is to say, there's a reason it's called the Roaring Twenties. The Roaring Twenties happened right after the Spanish flu pandemic, and everybody was out spending money. Everybody wanted to be out partying and socializing and enjoying life and kind of celebrating the fact that we can do this again. We can go out of our homes and do this again. So, and it's not just J.J. Abrams, but I've heard this opinion from a lot of other people as well, right? The whole Roaring Twenties followed directly the pandemic from 1918. Ava DuVernay goes on to, spout her theories and everything. And I want to focus on J.J. Abrams for a second, though, because he said some really interesting things in comparing television to cinema. Here, let me jump into the article really quick. Forgive me. This particular article, if you have a chance to read it, I highly encourage that, because there's so much. There's so much in here that is very, very fascinating. And it really kind of makes you think about a lot of things. J.J. Abrams. He's talking about the relationship between, oh man, this is so unprofessional of me. Sorry, everybody. It's coming. Oh, promise me it's coming. Okay, here we go. Top of this article. Mr. Abrams, as much a television wunderkind as a movie one, described the difference between small screens and big ones by summarizing something he'd heard once on National Public Radio on NPR. Television, he explained, is the child and the audience is the parent. It's smaller than you. You can control it by changing the channel. But with movies, the roles are reversed. You are the small one. You're supposed to look up at them. And I thought that was a really fascinating way of looking at this. Is that, when you're in a movie theater, you're physically looking up at this giant screen. When you're at home, you're physically looking down. I mean, historically, television screens are much bigger now than they ever used to be. But historically, you would look down at your television screen. I mean, we look down at our phones, we look down at our computers, and it may be still, depending on your home theater setup, you may still be looking down at your television set. So it's an interesting dynamic to say that you can control what's on television, because if you don't like it, you just change the channel. But you can't control that in a movie theater. You already bought your ticket. You're in the theater. You're with a couple hundred other people surrounding you, if it's not a pandemic, and you're looking up at this thing that's bigger than you. Lloydie kind of touched on this in our last segment about Disney in the relationship between like you and the film, and it's the concept that certain film actors don't want to, or historically back in the day, wouldn't want to go down to television to kind of reduce themselves a little bit, because you're looking up at them as opposed to looking down. All of this is to say, I think we are jumping to conclusions far too quickly. I think we are reading big headlines. I think we want to be as dramatic as possible. And again, I'm guilty of it. I have done this. I have looked at the headlines, and yes, I've read the articles, but I've also kind of like done my not due diligence and just spouting off some of this stuff. And I think it's still maybe a little too early to call what the future is going to look like. Because as Lloydie has pointed out, as other guests have pointed out, as I myself have pointed out, we are social creatures. We don't want to not be social creatures. We want to have things to go out and do. And if history's taught us anything, it's that in times of trouble, the night is darkest just before the dawn. And when the dawn comes, we all stand up and rejoice. I've kind of, Lloydie, thrown my 2 cents into the proverbial ring for a moment. Where do you stand on this? Do you think that movie theaters are going to go away completely? Do you think the landscape is going to change? What do you think that's going to look like? Do you think we're being a little too dramatic in this regard? Where do you stand?
Oh, I don't mind a little bit of drama. You know me. But the thing is, when anyone ever says about a medium, yeah, that medium is dead, I am always immediately skeptical. Like, I've worked for 25 years predominantly in the radio industry, and decades and decades and decades before I was born, people were saying radio was dead. I've had a 25-year career out of it, on and off, and it's still going. And during the pandemic, radio listening has increased. It's been more valued by people than it was previously. So I think, prediction is a fool's game. I think you can only look at evidence and go, I think projection is better than prediction. You can kind of make your own little projection and say that's roughly where it's going to be, I think, and then you can be proved right or wrong. I personally think movie theaters are long-term going to be just fine, providing they reinvent themselves. I mean, I remember I know it's hard to believe looking at my face, but I was alive in the 1980s. And I remember back then in the 1980s, they were kind of predicting the end for cinema. They were saying, movies aren't selling. We've got, movie theaters closing. And then the multiplex was invented. And it, again, like earlier on, I said, it's about experiences. Like, if you are giving people an experience that is greater than just the movie, although the movie is obviously the pinnacle, then that is where I am absolutely certain the future is. Because more than ever before as humans, I think, we really crave connection and experiences because we spend so much time on our devices, on our smartphones, and the pandemic has only increased that. And those moments of connection, we're craving more and more. And to have a collective experience, whether it's in a movie theater or a real theater, I say real theater, but you know what I mean,
right,
a live theater environment, those are magical times. And I go back to the Decoder podcast that I was speaking about earlier on. They were the business of Alamo Drafthouse would be fine because they were investing in all the elements of the experience. Like, I've never been to a movie theater where they're selling like locally brewed craft beer, for example, where I can pick from my, local ones, or, where the coffee's from a local roastery, things like that. It's about the whole thing. And then when you sit there in that comfy seat, and like you said, you've got that huge screen, like even people with a home cinema set do not have what a decently kitted out movie theater has. Unless you're a millionaire, that just ain't happening for most people. So you really do get an experience, and you hear the moment when people gasp around you. When you're watching a comedy, it is demonstrably funnier when there are people around you laughing.
Well, that's kind of one of the things.
We know that people find that
If
funny.
I can interject for a second, that's kind of one of the things that we addressed on the show yesterday. Is a comment was thrown in from a longtime watcher of the show from Leeds. And he was saying that, like, do American audiences really jump and cheer at the movies? Because English audiences are more subdued and calmer and more polite in that regard. And I think that speaks to the kind nature of the standard Brit. But in America, like one of the things that we talked about was, do you remember in Avengers Endgame? And again, like we hashed this all out yesterday, but that moment in Avengers Endgame, spoiler alert, when Thanos was raging towards the end, it was gearing up towards the final battle. He'd knocked out Iron Man already. He subdued Captain America, and then he kicked the crap out of Thor. And then he's just standing there, and you're thinking, like, he just took out the main three guys. Like, what is happening? And then Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, is covered in lightning. It starts to levitate just a little bit, and you're like, hang on a second, something's happening. And then it rushes across the screen. And then who catches it? Captain America. And the entire movie theater, I was in Florida. I was in Orlando, Florida, watching this. The entire theater erupted with roars and applause and cheers, and people were literally standing. People were on their feet, and we're sitting in the lie flat seats in like the recliners. People reset the recliners just so they could stand and applaud at this moment. It was a moment that nobody could have predicted. And as our guest on the show yesterday pointed out, Roland Lopez, if we had not been able to see that movie in theaters and you had to watch it by yourself at home, you would have been robbed of that experience. You would have been completely robbed of that experience.
And don't get me wrong, we do have, moments in the theater where we react. You mentioned our kindly nature. I think it's basically because British people are deeply repressed emotionally. And actually, to be fair, in more recent years, we've loosened up a little bit as a country. Certainly, I remember watching the Jordan Peele movie, Get Out, and I witnessed an entire movie theater jump, including my friend Liam next to me, who literally jumped higher than I've ever seen anyone jump out of a seat in my life. So it does happen. But I mean, Captain America catching a hammer is not going to have us whooping and cheering, not least because it's Captain America, not Captain Britain.
So when Captain Britain comes to the screen, and I predict he will be coming sooner rather than later.
Played by Hugh Grant.
Hopefully not. Oh, my dear heavens. No, thank you. Oh, no, thank you. Henry Golding, maybe. I would love to see Henry Golding make an MCU appearance. I think that would be wonderful. I think he's a lovely human being. Anyway, guys, question for you is, what are your thoughts on the changing landscape? I mean, HBO Max and Warner Media has really switched things up a lot. We're still waiting to hear announcements from the Disney company later today, maybe tomorrow. We know major things are happening, things that are changing the here and the now. But what do you think the future looks like? Do you think movie theaters will endure? Do you think that all the movie theaters will shut down completely, or do you think they will shut down completely and then have a resurgence? Like, there's so many question marks in the air hanging right now. What do you think? Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, our next bit of movie news today is this is kind of a bittersweet story. There was an interview with George Lucas very recently, and he kind of opened up. He was being interviewed for, kind of a biography, if you will. And he kind of opened up about why, or rather what his personal decisions for selling Lucasfilm to Disney were. I'd love to jump in the article for a second. It's not a very long article. However, the quote from George Lucas is quite lengthy. So just bear with me for a moment because he says some really poignant things here. George Lucas says, quote, at that time, at the time that, he sold Lucasfilm to Disney, at that time I was starting the next trilogy. I talked to the actors and I was starting to gear up. I was also about to have a daughter with my wife. It takes about 10 years to make a trilogy. Episodes 1 through 3 took from 1995 to 2005. And in 2012, I was 69 years old. So the question was, why am I going to keep doing this the rest of my life? Or rather, the question was, am I going to keep doing this for the rest of my life? Do I want to go through this again? Finally, I decided I'd rather raise my daughter and enjoy life for a while. I could not have sold Lucasfilm and gotten somebody to run the productions, but that isn't, he could have not sold Lucasfilm and gotten someone to run the productions, but that isn't retiring. On The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, I tried to stay out of the way, but I couldn't. I was there every day. Even though the people were friends of mine and they did great work, it wasn't the same as me doing it. It was like being once removed, or like one step removed. I knew that probably wouldn't work again, that I'd be frustrated, but I'm one of those micromanager guys. I can't help it. So I figured I would forego that, enjoy what I had, and I was looking forward to raising my daughter. Also, I wanted to build a museum, which I'd always wanted to do. So I was thinking, if I don't do this now, I'll never get that done. I've spent my entire life creating Star Wars, 40 years, and giving it up was very, very painful, but it was the right thing to do. I thought I was going to have a little bit more time I thought I was going to have a little bit more to say about the next 3 because I'd already started them, but they decided they wanted to do something else. Things don't always work out the way you want. Life is like that. And I apologize. It's a lengthy quote from George Lucas as to kind of the reasons why he decided to sell Lucasfilm and kind of stay in that life as a family man. And he knows himself so well that he can't distance himself from certain things. So if he completely severs the ties, and I can relate. I'm very much the same way. If I'm loosely connected with something, I'm fully connected with something, right? That's just my nature. That's how I am. If I'm doing something, I'm all in on it. Evidence of this was brought up earlier on this channel when I was in Universal Studios. I wanted to make kind of a video blog as to, video journal entries or, whatever, of our experiences at Universal Studios. Can we go there and do it safely? If you want to watch the video, if you want to hear my thoughts on it, go look it up. It's in the channel. I think it's under the editorial playlist. However, when I'm there in Universal Studios, I can't stop having fun for a moment and start working. Those are two very different parts of my brain. So whatever it is that I'm doing in the moment, I'm doing that. That's what I'm engaged in. If I'm there to work, I can't have fun. If I'm there to have fun, I can't work. It's just how my brain works. It's how I'm wired. It's how I'm programmed. So to hear George Lucas go through all of these different steps and for him to realize the things that are really, truly important to him and to sacrifice his company. Now, when I say sacrifice, it's not like he's diminishing the quality of it, although there can be those discussions as well. It was that he was letting go of something that he felt so passionately about and loved and built literally from the ground up. He built an empire from the ground up, and in order to have something that he felt was greater, he had to let go of this empire. And how difficult and how hard and struggling of a decision that must have been for him. Lloydie, you are possibly, maybe not in all actuality, but quite possibly the biggest Star Wars fan I've ever met in my life. And I have been to Star Wars Celebration. So suck on that for a moment.
Wow. I didn't realize this.
Like, how does this news strike you? Like, does this warm your heart? Does it make you sad? Like, it's a bittersweet note to talk about, but what are your thoughts on this?
Bittersweet is right. It's a mix of emotions for me on this, because Star Wars is the reason whenever I go to the cinema, whenever I'm there to see a movie, when I walk into the movie theater, I get the chills, like every single time. There is a bit of me that's like, I'm going to go and see it. And even if the movie is like one of the worst movies that I've ever seen, just that moment of walking in there is still really exciting to me. And, I credit George Lucas with that. He created this wonderful, wonderful thing. But you are right when you say that sometimes you need someone else to come in. Sometimes you need to step away from your thing, because when you are a control freak, as he admits he is, then sometimes there's no one to tell you no when you're having the bad idea. Like, the good idea he had was definitely Star Wars. And in the early days, when he didn't have, when he hadn't made all the money, he had to listen to other people. He had to listen in the test screening when people said, George, this movie doesn't make sense. And actually, part of the credit for A New Hope goes to Marcia Lucas, his then wife, who was an exceptional film editor, who basically recut the whole thing, and so many things changed, and she made a coherent movie. And he has kind of dined out on that. Now, don't get me wrong, you can't still take away the fact that it was his original idea. But for me, and I hate to say this because he's one of the people I would most love to meet in such an influence on it. And he had a vision for how those three other movies were going to go. But other people decided, actually, you know what, this is a better way. And I honestly think, particularly when The Force Awakens came out, they were proved right. There was another way. There was something to do with this universe that he hadn't thought of. And Mike, we're both improvisers. We know that actually when we are working together as a collective, we create something that is way bigger than the sum of the parts. And I think if you are a control freak in charge of something for too long, eventually you can suck the life out of it. And he was in danger of doing that with Star Wars. There are some that would argue that maybe he did that with the prequels. But I think he did the right thing. I think he made the right decision. And painful though it is for him, and actually painful though it is to hear him talk about it, I think he played it right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's hard. As you point out, like when you're so closely attached to this thing, it's your baby, it's your thing. And to let go of it means letting go of creative control, to see other people take ownership of the thing that, not just that you created, but like how else do you describe a cultural movement? Like, he changed the world. He changed the world. He changed cinema. He changed fandom. He changed how toy sales work. He single-handedly, like, even though that wasn't his design, he didn't stop and think, how can more T-shirts in the world be sold? Like, that wasn't his motive, but that's the kind of impact that he had. He has impact on billion-dollar companies because of this one idea,
Yeah, and this is the power of an idea, isn't it? I don't wish to retell the same joke, but I'm going to. Whilst by the look of my face, you would not necessarily know that I was around in the 1980s. I'll advertise my moisturizer range later. But in the 1980s, they were talking about the death of cinema, and the thing that was keeping movie theaters open was blockbusters like Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And then you had George's friend Steven Spielberg doing things like Indiana Jones. And these were the movies that people wanted to go and see because they were exciting, they were an experience. And with the special effects, the like of which had never been seen before, he literally reinvented special effects by setting up his own division. people had to see that at the cinema. There was no way it was ever going to be as impressive on your television as it was seeing that opening shot of A New Hope, where the Star Destroyer comes over you, pretty much over your head in the movie theater. That was the like of which had never been seen before. And that's the kind of thing that saved cinema. So going back to what we were discussing a few moments ago, is there a future, in movie theaters existing? If people are making the right stuff and you are making the right environment for them, absolutely there is. And I think just because you have had success does not mean you get everything right. And I know people are looked up to so much when they have success in any field, but George Lucas made mistakes as well. I'm sure he would admit at least some of them. And that is where collaborative working comes together. And that is why him passing on Star Wars when he did to Disney was the right call, both for him and then with what Disney did. Even if he personally didn't like it, I think for this huge empire that he created, the right calls, by and large, were made. And I know that will upset some Star Wars fans.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And just because you've had incredible success does not mean that you always make the right calls. However you phrase that, I think that resonates the strongest. And for that reason alone, amongst, obviously many others, he wanted to focus on his family. He's 69 at the time. He was 69 years old. He was raising a daughter. He wants to have those experiences before they're gone. And those are the things you can't get back. He's had his time with Star Wars. Now he wants to have time with his family, and you can't, when you realize that you can't have your cake and eat it too, and you have to make a choice, I can't blame him for that. Anyway, guys, big question for you is, what do you think about the situation with George Lucas? Do you think he was right to sell Star Wars? Do you think he should have held on to it maybe just a little bit longer to see this episode 7, 8, and 9 go through? Do you think Disney should have used his ideas? Where do you sit with this? Jump down to the comment section below. I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts. All right, guys, our next bit of movie news today, and we have two more bits of news to cover. This is quite, I'm not going to say it's exciting, but this just looks fun. Nicolas Cage is hosting a new Netflix movie, a television series. I think it's 6 episodes about the history of swear words. I think this is entomology. Is there an N in there? Entomology. Do you happen to know?
They're two different things.
Entomology is bugs, right?
Yeah.
Etymology is words.
Is the study of words and language. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Or words specifically. Yeah.
So not entomology, but etymology. Nicolas, I always found this particular pursuit when it comes to swear words, curse words, they're just words, you guys. Why do people take such offense to certain things? Why do these certain words sound harsh in some cultures and not other cultures? I think this is a fascinating idea. And based on the trailer that Netflix just recently put out, this looks so fun. This looks so fun. Lloydie, you had a chance to watch the trailer. What's your knee-jerk reaction? And are you going to watch this? Are you going to share it? Are you going to post about it and talk about it? Where are you here?
I am really curious what this is going to be like. Firstly, as someone, with a limited hairline, I've always been very envious of Nicolas Cage's hair pieces. So it's certainly one to watch just for those. But beyond my lack of hair, I think it's a really interesting topic to do, to deal with. And if they do it right, this could be really interesting to watch. I know some people who deal in language who are professors in language. And I know one of them, he always used to ask his linguistic students what the worst swear word was. And they would come up with one which is particularly bad, and he'd get them all to shout it out. And then so if you were marching past his lecture theater, there would be all of these undergraduate students shouting one of the worst words, but then he'd write another one on on his like screen and say, "What about this word?" And literally none of the students would want to say it because, yeah, because we all have different cultural sensibilities
biases, yeah.
about different words and biases, and like some of it is generational. But they've also done studies showing that different parts of your brain supposedly light up when swear words are used as opposed to other words. So, and they've also done studies that actually, like when you hurt yourself, if you swear, it apparently lessens the pain because there is some kind of chemical release. There are loads of studies around swear words. So it's such a rich topic. If they do this well, I think this could be a really, really interesting series.
Lloydie, kind of getting away from the Nicolas Cage Netflix aspect of this topic.
Can we keep the hair pieces though? Can we keep the hair pieces?
Can you do your best Nicolas Cage impression right now? You can keep the hairpiece if you do a Nicolas Cage impression.
I can't even approximate his voice. I mean, as you know, I don't do the American accent very well anyway. So, thank you.
Okay, so
doing Nicolas Cage. Well, I don't know. I'm Nicolas Cage. Yeah, that's the best I've got.
I love it.
There you go.
I love it. Because I have my own thoughts and opinions, but what is your opinion? Why do you think we as a collective group of people have chosen any one of these particular words? Pick any swear word, any curse word. Why have we decided that this one individual word is harmful or hurtful or derogatory? Why is it derogatory? Why do we do this?
It's interesting. And I am not, whilst I'm a bit of a nerd for words, I'm not an expert on this. I mean, we often say a bad word in anger. So I wonder if some of these words have been over time associated with kind of anger or the belittling of others, and have therefore become taboo because of that. But that is me giving a guess, because I surely do not know.
Now, I've heard certain when we talk about maybe the swear word version of poop, of the poop word.
The poop word.
I've heard historical accounts as to the aristocratic kind of the hierarchy, as where this was a word that was created to elevate or become aristocratic. And then maybe when kind of the lower class started catching on that this was a word that the higher class was using, the higher class deemed this new word that they were using as derogatory because it was the lower class that was using it. And so they deemed it, oh, we don't use that word anymore. That's not a proper... I don't know about the history. I don't know if that's accurate. That's just one of the things that I've heard. I find these types of things extremely interesting, and why it's a word. It's a word. Mm-hmm. It's a word that we use to express emotions. I have always been of the opinion that if you are going to use swear words or curse words or bad words or whatever, you should never use them towards another person in anger. That's always been my personal philosophy or feeling. If I'm hammering and I hit my thumb, curse word comes out. Or if I'm frustrated about, like, I just can't get the wording of this script right, and I'm just so, blankety blank, right? I'm a fan of using them as releases of energy as opposed to causing harm towards another person. Do you have a different take on that, or do you think that that's a fair, or do you maybe just think we shouldn't use curse words in general?
If I were to ban them, I would be falling foul of my own law. But I broadly agree with you. I think they can be comedically. I think they can be very useful. So if you've seen the film In the Loop, or even actually watched the TV show Veep. They have stemmed from Armando Iannucci and his original TV show called The Thick of It, which is a political drama or political comedy in the UK. And in that, there was a character called Malcolm Tucker, played by Peter Capaldi, who also played Doctor Who. He is a spin doctor who is incredibly sweary and uses swear words really creatively, to the extent that they employed a swear word consultant to work on the scripts in that show. Yeah. Because those words were so synonymous with him, and the way he used swear words was so synonymous with that character. And because on British television after 9 p.m. you can use swear words in a way that you can't on US television. So they actually employed someone to do that. So I think they are so evocative, they are so powerful, and when used, let's say, judiciously, and not to necessarily put down other people or to bully in real life, at the very least, then I think they can be very entertaining indeed.
I could not agree more. But the big question is for you guys, ladies and gentlemen, where do you stand with curse words, with swear words? Do you think it's okay to use them given the proper environment or situation? Or are you of the opinion that we should just not engage with them at all? Where do you stand with Nicolas Cage in this new Netflix television show, essentially series? Are you interested? Because I am ridiculously interested. I could not be more interested if I tried. What are your thoughts? Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys, we have one last bit of movie news to cover, and it's not necessarily new. It's news light. Let me preface this by saying it's news light. We covered this topic on the show kind of yesterday, or rather the day before. It was breaking news that here, let me just post it. Dr. Octopus was confirmed by The Hollywood Reporter. Alfred Molina was confirmed that he was reprising his role as Doc Ock in the upcoming Spider-Man 3 film. And of course, we did a story about it yesterday. We talked about it. We gave our thoughts and opinions and how exciting that is and what the implications of this could and would be for the MCU moving forward, blah, 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 right? In addition to Alfred Molina being confirmed, there's a few different things about this that are mildly upsetting, and we live in the day and age of headlines, right? You read a headline and everybody freaks out, and I kind of feel like that's the theme of today's episode altogether. And again, I'm guilty of this. Alfred Molina reprises his role as Doc Ock. We need to talk about this, and we need to exploit this news, right? I'm guilty. We're literally doing this right now. This is what this particular video is about. But it also poses the question, A, should we be doing it? Because, spoilers, it would be so much better to be surprised and just see this in real time on the big screen. Why do we need all of these leaks? Why do we need to know everything that there is to know about these movies before we go to watch them? And again, I'm guilty of this. This is literally what we're doing right now. So this could not be more hypocritical of me right now. But hey, it is what it is, right? Is that an answer? No, but here we are, right? So in addition to Alfred Molina being confirmed as as playing Doc Ock, reprising his role in the next Spider-Man film, it's also being, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, confirmed that Andrew Garfield, most likely Tobey Maguire, and Kirsten Dunst will be reprising their roles from their respective films as well. This is where I take issue. I want to talk about fact-checking for a second. There are so many articles right now that are confirming that Andrew Garfield is going to be in the next Spider-Man 3 movie. I'm not saying that he's not. I'm not saying that this isn't true. This very well may be true. But all of this not all of this referring to Alfred Molina, but all of this referring to specifically Kirsten Dunst, Andrew Garfield, and the possibility of Tobey Maguire. This is all coming out from an article from Collider. Collider, now I need to preface this by saying Collider is not Joe's moviegasstationblog.com, right? It's not Gotta Love Them Movies, right? So they have some street cred. They have actual credibility. Collider is one of those news outlets. Again, news outlets. Some of it is rumor, yes. But I feel like Collider does a better job of doing their due diligence, that when they're breaking a story, that they have actual credibility. That being said, Collider is also not the Hollywood Reporter. Collider is not Variety. Collider is not Rolling Stone. Collider is not Deadline. Collider is more reliable than most rumor mill websites. I don't mean to lump Collider in with other rumor mill websites, but they're more reliable, but they're also not the most reliable, if that makes sense at all. Yesterday, Collider confirmed. Here, let me jump into this webpage for a sec. As we scroll down, because guess what? Quote, because guess what? They're all coming back. Just like Jamie Foxx's Electro, Andrew Garfield will be back. And if Sony Marvel can close a deal with Tobey Maguire, he'll be back too. Kirsten Dunst will return as MJ, and I expect Emma Stone to reprise her role as Gwen Stacy, pregnancy permitting. Why? Because blah, 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 blah. Here's where I take issue with this. Collider didn't cite any of their sources. They didn't provide links to any other anything. They're not coming out and saying, we have been told exclusively from inside sources that we believe are credible. They didn't say any of that. They just made a blanket statement. Andrew Garfield will be returning. Okay. Where's your fact checking? Where's your evidence? Where's your proof? Where's your credibility here? They didn't cite any of that. And that's where I take issue with a lot of these things. And again, I'm not saying that this isn't true. This very well may be. In fact, it is very, very likely that this is true. Because here's another thing. Spider-Man 3 is already filming. They're like 3 weeks filming, 3 weeks into filming down in Atlanta right now. The script is finished. They're not going to change the script unless they're doing last-minute rewrites of, oh boy, I sure hope that we can get Tobey Maguire in this movie. They already know. Sony and Marvel already know who and who is not going to be in this movie. So all that we're doing right now is speculating what has already been done. Alfred Molina was hired way back long ago, and for whatever reason, Hollywood Reporter just got confirmation of something that had already happened months ago. Same thing with Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx put out a tweet saying, hey, all the Spider-Mans are back, and then like 10 minutes later, the tweet got taken down. So is it likely that they're all coming back? Yes, it's likely, because we know kind of that this is leading into the Spider-Verse, that this is leading into the multiverse. Doctor Strange is in the movie. Again, a better surprise if we were to see it on the big screen, but hey, stuff that we know right now, right? So this is what I talk about this is what I mean when I'm talking about, let's do our fact checking, let's do our due diligence. Does it mean they're not in the movie? No. But let's find where the source is coming from. Everybody's running with this idea that it has been confirmed that Andrew Garfield is coming back to play Spider-Man in the next Spider-Man movie. Again, that may be the case. And tomorrow, maybe it will be confirmed. But Collider saying that it is confirmed doesn't mean that it's confirmed. How is it confirmed? Who confirmed it? What are your sources? You don't have to reveal your sources. Hollywood Reporter doesn't reveal their sources. Neither does Deadline or Variety. But they have a history of being credible sources. And when they say, we have sources close to the project, That's what I'm talking about. And Collider didn't do that. Maybe they do have sources, but they didn't say that they have sources. They didn't say how they came to know this knowledge. All they said is they are confirmed. And now everybody else on the internet is running with the story that Andrew Garfield has been confirmed. Tobey Maguire is in talks. He's not in talks. That is already a done decision. The script has been written. The film is 3 weeks deep into production right now. Lloydie, can you give me a little bit of vocal rest right now? I've just ranted on this for a moment.
I've enjoyed that. You are passionate.
Where do you
about
stand with stuff like this? Like you work in radio. I imagine that news is scrutinized very closely in your respective medium. Is this something that, in terms of like rumor mill type stuff, that we can take with a grain of salt, or should we as film fans do our due diligence and get to the heart of these things? Where do you stand? Or do you actually think that Collider has some credibility? Where are you?
I certainly on hard news stories, and on facts generally, I believe in scrutiny. I believe in due diligence. I think what is going on here is, in the world of entertainment news, journalism is perhaps slightly more about clicks, basically. When you showed that webpage just a few moments ago, there's a nice Chase Bank advert there. Now, that's particular headline, and you talk about headlines, that headline will have got a click through to that page, which will have displayed that ad, and that will have registered. So they are making money from headlines like that. So for a start, any business that is dealing in entertainment news needs good headlines, because people will click through on the right entertainment
Also,
story.
may I point out, if you clicked on this video, it's because of the headline and the thumbnail that I used to get you to click on this particular video. So don't think that I'm again, is this hypocritical of me to say or to do? It is what it is. We're all in this together, but let's also try and get things straight. Sorry, I needed to interject that.
Equally, no, and that's fair, but equally, we all have our own standards of what is, to us, let's call it an ethical headline, shall we say? And I tell you what would be ethical to do now, and that's click subscribe on Gotta Love Their Movies, and ding the little bell as well, so you get notifications on YouTube, because that's an ethical choice. We all know that. You know that. I know
sure
that.
do.
But beyond that, there are other things at play here. And I'm with you on the I would prefer reveals in movies, like in the final Star Wars movie that we had in Episode 9. The trailer had the laugh of Palpatine in it, and then the actor confirmed he was going to be, Ian McDiarmid said he was going to be Emperor Palpatine again. That would have been just the most amazing surprise. That would have been a gasp moment in the cinema, a collective experience thing. I would have been like, what? So that's a shame. I think it's a shame when they reveal these things, but I get why they do it. Because you have got a movie theater that has sunk tens of millions of dollars into a movie. When it comes out, it has got to have a buzz around it. People have got to want to go to see it. Now, the more headlines you can generate in the run up to your movie, even during production of your movie, the more people are anticipating it, the more brain space it's taking up. Whereas the more you keep your cards close to your chest, the fewer headlines there are going to be. The tighter ship you run, the less people are going to be talking about you. Then you put out your movie, you are going to have to pay tens of millions more dollars in advertising to get people there. This is all about not only clicks, but it's also about people getting people to recognize that a movie is out. Because back in the day, when there were fewer TV channels, there were one or two big blockbusters, there were a few, newspapers, and we didn't have the internet. Well, it was easy to know what was coming up. But now, there are so many YouTube channels like this one that you can subscribe to. Gotta Love Their Movies. Just click subscribe and then ding the bell.
But you're not getting paid to say that.
Actually, I know I'm not getting paid to say that. But actually, I say that partly as a joke, but partly because that is how you get attention. It's not simply through subscriptions, but when you put the notification bell on, that's how people know a YouTube channel has updated. And people know a movie is coming out because there is a headline that they want to click through on. It's all about people's brain space, and you have got to occupy, as a movie producer, people's brain space. The other thing is, if you're reading about actors who might or might not be in a movie, sometimes that's a negotiation technique between the actors and the studio. Either the actor's agent will leak something or the studio will leak something to try to seal a deal, like, why isn't this actor in that movie, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I have no idea what's happening in this case. As you say, this movie is already in production. Chances are they've just, you know, someone's got hold of some info, they want some clicks, or a movie studio has pushed out a nugget of information but not told them the whole story, or they picked it up from another source. But the fact that they're getting headlines,
and I don't take issue with that. I don't take issue with that. What I take issue with is that you are confirming, you're taking it upon yourself to confirm something that has not officially been confirmed yet. Like, obviously the studio is not going to confirm anything, but it's sources close to the project. This is where we get like our nuggets. That's where like Deadline and Hollywood Reporter and Variety and Rolling Stone, they're able to have credibility with that when they say, we have sources close to the project that say XYZ, and then 4 months later we come to find out, no, it's true. So they're citing their source, or they're saying that they have sources. They don't cite them, but they let us know that they have sources close to the project, and they also have a history of being correct. When
they want to seem like the authority on this issue. They want to be like the voice of, this is what's happening in the movies.
I don't take issue when Collider does that, but they're not saying why they know it. I mean, maybe they do know it. Maybe they do. But they're not saying why they know it. That's what I take issue with.
I see what you're saying. I suppose what I would say is it could be an editorial choice, not to say from sources. They might just want to have an editorial tone. It could be a house style that says, we can confirm that, so that they are seen as this authoritative voice, rather than saying, oh, yeah, someone else kind of told us. And, you know, it sounds, to some, I'm sure, less authoritative to do it that way. So it may just be a house style choice. I genuinely don't know.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting caught up in semantics. Maybe all of this is genuine. Maybe I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill. What do you guys think? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Is there more to this story? Do you think that we can trust? Because all the sources, all of the news articles or news outlets being written about the story come from this particular article in Collider. Do you think we can trust Collider? Again, I think this is very likely that this is going to happen. I'm just a little cautious when it comes to fact checking. Where do you stand on it? Again, am I being overly cautious? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Am I redundant? Also, am I redundant? Let me know down in the comment section below. You like that? I thought that was clever. I thought that was clever. All right, you guys. This brings us to the end of our show. Normally, this is the part of the show where we take live questions, but being that absolutely zero comments or questions have been presented to us, we're just going to leave it on the table. We're going to end it here.
I have that in effect on a show, Mike. I should have warned you before you invited me as a guest that, you know.
I knew it. Lloydie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for chatting about all of this favorite stuff that we love chatting about. Where can people find you online, and tell us about some of the upcoming projects that you have going on?
Thank you. Well, online you can look just down there.
There you are.
There it is. There's my Twitter handle. And I'm on Instagram as well. It's mainly pictures of my cat. So if you like cat pictures, at LloydieJL on Instagram. If you like me being dry and sarcastic, then same handle on Twitter. And if you love improv and making things up and podcasts, then search for the Improv Chronicle podcast in Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And all of those links are going to be in the description of this video, wherever you happen to be watching this video. So just keep an eye out for that as well.
That's because you're a lovely man.
Aw, well, hey, it takes one to know one. It takes someone to know one, sir.
Stop. I tell you, the other thing, actually, importantly, sorry to cut in there.
No,
but,
please.
But if you click subscribe on Gotta Love Them Movies and then hit the notification bell, then you'll get to see Mike all the time, and it's the ethical choice.
All the time. It's so ethical. Also, I do have, I guess I do have a thing to plug. This upcoming Sunday, December 13th at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be playing one of the main characters in an original play, Hungry Hungry Hippos, written by Leah Evans of the Armory Theater here in New York City. So the links for that, for the YouTube channel, for the YouTube link, will be in the description of this video. So go ahead and check that out. Put it on your calendars. December 13th, 6 o'clock p.m. Hungry Hungry Hippos. That is a real thing that is happening. Lloydie, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for spreading your insight and wisdom, and just for being awesome.
Thank you for being awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I've had an absolute blast. Thank you.
Let's do it again. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is exactly what Nicolas Cage and his extremely foul mouth would want you to do. All right, guys, this is Gotta Love Them Movies, your daily dose of movie news. I'm your host, Mr. Mike Brown. I'm here all the time. You guys, we live in a weird, crazy world where everybody has their own thoughts and opinions. Sometimes those thoughts and opinions clash. So if you have an opportunity to infuse a little bit of kindness into the world, please take that opportunity. If you have an opportunity to speak kind words to each other, please take that opportunity. And as always, in the words of Bill and Ted, be excellent to each other. I'll see you guys tomorrow.